To understand this delay, you have to go back to 1997. Paul Allen saved the Seahawks from moving to California, but he needed public money to build what is now Lumen Field. The state agreed, but they passed Referendum 48 to protect their investment. Buried in Section 210 of that legislation regarding bond issuance and state repayment was a specific clawback provision. It stipulated that if the team was sold within 25 years of the bonds being issued, the state was entitled to 10% of the gross sale price to repay the public debt. Here is the math that dictated the trust's entire strategy. The bonds were officially issued in 1999, not 1997. That started a 25-year lockup period that didn't expire until May 2024. If the Paul Allen Trust had sold the team in 2023, riding the wave of the Washington Commanders' sale, they would have likely fetched around $6 billion. Under Referendum 48, they would have had to write a check for $600 million to the state of Washington immediately. That is a massive unnecessary hit to the estate's net exit value. This context completely explains the strategic silence we saw from Jody Allen over the last 5 years. Every time a rumor surfaced about Jeff Bezos or a private equity group making a bid, the trust issued a flat public denial. They weren't being stubborn, they were watching the clock. By simply waiting until after May 2024, the trust saved roughly $700 million in state penalties. That is pure profit generated by patience. In the world of high-stakes estate management, waiting out a calendar year to save nearly $1 billion is the only logical move. The media framed Jody Allen as an indecisive trustee, but in reality, she was executing a textbook hold strategy. You do not liquidate a distressed asset, and you certainly do not liquidate an asset subject to a 10% gross revenue tax. The timeline was non-negotiable. The bonds expired, the 25-year window closed, and as of this season, the Seahawks are finally free of the state's financial handcuffs. However, avoiding a tax penalty is only half the battle. Now that the $700 million threat is gone, the trust needs a catalyst to drive the price up to their $8 billion target. You don't get that valuation just by listing the team on a Tuesday. You get it by showcasing the product on the world's biggest stage. This brings us to the valuation multiplier of Super Bowl LX. Now that the trust has successfully navigated the Referendum 48 minefield and saved that $700 million, the strategy shifts from defense to offense. The goal isn't just to sell the team, it is to sell the team at the absolute apex of its value. This is where the timing of Super Bowl LX becomes the most critical variable in the entire equation. The Allen Trust is effectively using the 2026 Super Bowl appearance as a massive global open house for the billionaire class. They are renovating the asset to ensure the highest possible appraisal, and there are 4 specific financial levers they are pulling to justify an asking price between $7 and $8 billion. The first valuation lever is media market leverage. Real estate agents tell you it's about location, and in the NFL that translates to designated market area, or DMA. Seattle ranks as the number 12 media market nationally, but its disposable income demographics punch significantly higher. We are projecting annual local media revenue to clear $250 million, a figure that outperforms mid-tier markets like Denver, which sits closer to $200 million. A deep playoff run or a Super Bowl appearance historically triggers a 10% lift in these local revenues, creating a recurring cash flow stream that allows a potential buyer to service the massive debt they will incur to buy the team. The second lever is the stadium itself. Lumen Field is a cash cow that generates approximately $150 million annually through tickets, luxury suites, and non-football events. But the trust didn't just let the stadium age. They invested $20 million in upgrades, specifically for the 2026 World Cup. This creates a turnkey revenue engine for the next owner. Furthermore, the post-championship effect on stadium economics is drastic. Data shows that demand for premium seating and luxury boxes spikes by 20 to 25% in the seasons following a Super Bowl appearance. That is immediate, hard liquidity that boosts the valuation multiple. The third, and perhaps most volatile lever, is roster equity. In corporate M&A, you look for intellectual property. In the NFL, you look for star power and wins. A Super Bowl appearance does not just sell jerseys, it lifts the total enterprise value of the franchise by $500 million to $1 billion. This is known as the winner's premium. Look at the Los Angeles Rams. Before their Super Bowl run, they were valued around $4.8 billion. Post-title, that valuation skyrocketed to $6.9 billion. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers saw a similar valuation spike after the Tom Brady era. The Allen Trust knows that selling a rebuilding team gets you a wholesale price, but selling a contender gets you a premium. With 7 playoff appearances in the last 10 years, the Seahawks offer a legacy of competence that commands a higher multiple. Finally, we have to look at sponsorship growth. The Seahawks currently command around $100 million in annual sponsorship deals, anchored by corporate giants like Microsoft and Alaska Airlines. This is significantly higher than the league average of $80 million. However, the international appeal of the Seahawks, bolstered by the NFL's global expansion and the upcoming World Cup matches at Lumen Field, adds another 15% growth potential to this vertical. When you combine these 4 metrics, media, stadium, roster, and sponsorship, you arrive at a revenue base of roughly $800 million. In today's market, premium sports assets trade at a 9 times revenue multiple. Do the math, 800 million times 9 puts you right at that target sale price of $7.2 billion. This would shatter the record set by the Washington Commanders at $6.05 billion and make the Seahawks the most expensive sports transaction in history. We have established the asset is premium and the price tag is astronomical. Now we face the liquidity crisis. The pool of human beings capable of writing a check for $7 billion is incredibly shallow. This isn't like selling a house where you just need a mortgage. This is a transaction that requires a level of liquidity that even most billionaires do not possess. This brings us to the shadow buyer list, the small circle of individuals who are actually watching this situation unfold. The most obvious name is Jeff Bezos. With a net worth hovering around $250 billion and deep ties to the Seattle area through Amazon, he is the logical favorite. He has the cash, he has the local connection, and he has previously explored buying the Commanders. However, there is a complication. Amazon currently holds the rights to Thursday Night Football. The NFL has strict rules regarding media partners owning franchises due to clear conflicts of interest. Bezos would likely have to navigate a complex divestiture or blind trust arrangement to satisfy the other owners, which adds friction to the deal. Then you have Larry Ellison, the Oracle founder worth $210 billion. Ellison is the wild card. He has the liquidity to buy the team outright without needing partners, which the NFL prefers. But the game changed recently with the introduction of private equity into the league. The NFL now allows firms to purchase up to 10% stakes in franchises. Firms like Arctos or Carlyle are poised to solve the liquidity problem for potential buyers who might be cash poor but asset rich. This rule change effectively expands the buyer pool by allowing a lead investor to bring in institutional capital to bridge the gap between their cash on hand and the $7 billion price tag. However, even with private equity, the NFL approval gauntlet is designed to filter out almost everyone. The most difficult hurdle is the 30% rule. The league mandates that the principal owner, the face of the franchise, must hold at least 30% equity in the team. On a $7 billion valuation, that means the lead buyer must put up $2.1 billion in personal cash. You cannot borrow that money against the team, and you cannot use debt to fund that specific slice. Additionally, the league imposes a strict debt ceiling of $1.5 billion for the overall transaction. This forces the buyer group to be incredibly cash-heavy, preventing the kind of leveraged buyouts that are common in the corporate world. Finally, we must consider the trust mandate. Paul Allen's will is explicit. The proceeds of this sale are directed to philanthropy. This has a profound impact on the auction mechanics. In a typical sale, an owner might take a slightly lower offer to sell to a friend or someone who promises to keep the team's culture intact. The trust does not have that luxury. They have a fiduciary duty to maximize the return for the charitable beneficiaries. This means there is no hometown discount. If an outside bidder offers $7.5 billion and a local Seattle group offers $7 billion, the trust is legally obligated to take the higher number. The closing of the Referendum 48 loophole has created a fascinating supply and demand squeeze. You have a scarcity of assets. NFL teams rarely hit the open market, combined with a scarcity of buyers who can afford them. The trust has waited patiently for the tax penalty to expire and the valuation metrics to peak. Now they just need one person to clear the NFL's financial hurdles. This entire saga isn't just about football. It is a masterclass in estate management. The Seahawks saga proves that in high-stakes asset management, patience is a legitimate revenue strategy. By simply waiting out the 25-year Referendum 48 clause, the estate saved over $700 million in state penalties. The executive lesson here is critical. Always audit your public funding agreements for hidden clawback clauses before you ever initiate a sale process. If you want more breakdowns on the hidden economics of sports ownership, make sure to subscribe right now.